What's going on, Ryan? How are you?
Man, I'm great. It's been 4 years.
It's
Lots
been
happened.
four. It's been 4 years. Ryan and I were just what is the word? We were kind of getting into the nostalgia of the last time that we had a conversation that was recorded like this, and it was the last few minutes of normality
Uh,
pre-COVID. It was at ISSC January of 2020. And we were in person. That was when it was in Long Beach. Actually, it's not even called ISSC anymore. It's called Premier
mm,
Anaheim. And we were sitting in that media area and having a great conversation. That was episodes 160 and 161. I had to look back because we're now in the almost 400. Actually, I think this episode, Ryan, when we drop it, it's probably going to be 400 and something.
nice.
But that was 160 and 161 where we talked about some really amazing things of your story. And I'm bringing this up right now for the sake of the listeners. Listeners, Ryan's story is awesome. I remember that I think we did two episodes. Your story took up the entire first episode, which was
Mm,
160. And just to give the listeners a little bite, for those of you who don't know Ryan's story, he went bankrupt, got divorced from his first marriage. He had a corporate career, learned a lot there that you then parlayed into your career behind the chair, which is one of the things I think that makes your content so powerful is that you have experiences that draw from various things that beauty professionals can really take advantage of. And then part two was what you did with Masters Balayage and your success as a salon coach. So again, 160 and 161, highly recommend listeners go back and check those out and then come back and listen to this episode. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember that I kind of really spilled the tea on a lot of things in my life. Yeah, I had you laughing a lot. I remember you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't believe this happened or that happened, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was definitely full Ryan at that moment. Yeah, I remember those conversations. I remember those my stories too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it was super fun. Okay, so for this episode, let's get caught up. What have you been up to?
I it's so funny because I asked that question recently to somebody on my podcast, and it's like, where do we even start? If you have a busy life, if you're an achiever by nature, which I am, and it's like, what have I gotten done in the last week or the last 2 weeks? But overall, as a whole, Masters of Balayage continues to grow, and we've just completed one of our best events ever called Hero. It's a hero retreat. We had that in San Diego. We had 800 stylists there in attendance, stylists and salon owners there.
800.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of like a
incredible.
Tony Robbins meets the hair industry. So it's a mixture between like technical and personal growth. So you're going to come there inspired, but you're going to leave transformed. That's kind of our motto behind it.
Yeah.
So we had that. Moving
And hold
forward,
on, tell
we've
us more about that. How many is that? Multiple
yeah,
days or?
2 days. It's a 2 day
Hmm.
show, and I was inspired by this event that I went to in 2019 called Influencer. It was run by Brendan Burchard, who's one of the great coaches of our time, personal growth coaches. He put on this event, and I think his was like 3 days long, and it was like from 9 in the morning till 7 at night. It was super long, but the way it was structured was in such a cool way that I'm like, I want to do an event like this one day, where he had all these incredible speakers that were coming in to talk about personal growth. Some you knew, some you didn't. But the way it was structured was that you never knew who was coming next. You just knew start time, end time. It wasn't like your traditional hair shows where you're like, this brand's coming on at 10, this brand's coming on at 11, this speaker's coming on at 12. Because if you give people too much, some people in the audience are going to make decisions on like, oh, I don't use that brand, I'm not going to go see that, or I don't
Hmm.
like that person, I'm not going to sit for this person, or I don't know who that is. We want everybody to be glued to their seats the entire time during this experience, because when it comes to successful hairdressers, the ones that are the most successful are the ones that are really focused on working on their business, not stuck inside their business. But most of our industry pushes technique, get better at your hair cutting, get better at your hair color, which it's important. It's kind of the bread and butter for what we do. If you can't do a good job behind the chair, then your client's probably not going to come back. But to get them in the chair, to get them to pay a high dollar figure to have boundaries that are strong enough to grow and scale your business to unbelievable levels, extraordinary levels. You need to be working on your business, which I think is the 90% of it. With skill, 10%. You could be the best hair cutter, best hair colorist in the world, but if nobody knows about you and you don't know how to attract the right people in your chair, you're not going to be able to realize your full potential. So what Hero is, if we had promoted it kind of like as a personal growth event, then we probably wouldn't get a huge turnout. But if you blend it together, people aren't really sure what they're going to get out of it, and they go there and they're just like completely blown away by the experience. They really leave transformed. It sets a new a precedence for what people can expect going back, where motivation generally wears off from hair events after a day or two. People are still talking about their experience there. They're still talking to people that they met there. And it's something that carries on because they have new actionable ways to not just do techniques behind the chair, but lead their lives.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Amazing. And I love the idea of not applying a rigid structure to it. And it's almost like a message to them. It's kind of like a trust us, trust us, the producers of the show. We're going to give you something phenomenal. And you eliminate that idea where they start building in their own variations of the expectations of this chunk of time, that chunk of time. This chunk of time is like, oh, I'm good at the consultation. Between 2 and 3, I'm going to run out and get lunch or something like that. And I love that kind of flexibility and openness that you probably get from not parsing the time and communicating that up front. So 800 people, is this in like a ballroom? Is it a hotel? Where'd you do it?
Yeah, it was a ballroom. Yeah, hotel. We did it. This one was at the Intercontinental in San Diego, which wouldn't go back there because of the price of actually hosting an event in San Diego is astronomical. I just wanted to do it because it was close to home. And I was able to take my family. My kids were able to be there. My mom was able to attend. So for that experience, it was very cool. San Diego is a beautiful place, but we know how expensive it is to do anything in Southern California or just in California in general. So I'm excited to take it to Nashville next year, which is a fraction of the price, but still the same exuberant experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. And plus you get a different audience, right? You
Absolutely,
get maybe some East Coast showing up, and Nashville's right in the middle. It's like, I'm from Dallas. Dallas is always thought of as like a very pragmatic place to do something because
2 hours
it
each
just
coast.
makes... Yeah, it's 2 hours. Everything makes sense. It's not that sexy or anything. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's all the other things, but it just makes sense. So a lot of people do shit like that in Dallas. All right, and so this is going to be an annual thing. Does HERO stand, is there an acronym there?
There's not an acronym for HERO, but a meaning behind it. And that was actually our 5th annual. We started, our first one was in 2020. Would that make it? Yeah. The first one was in 2020. 2020, and was that 5 years, 4 years, whatever. Wait,
it's like COVID 2020?
COVID 2020, and then we were able to get it to happen before COVID started, and that was 2 weeks later. The world shut down, so we got real lucky there, and that was in Orlando.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, because the world shut down in mid-March. I don't want to bring back PTSD for anybody. So yeah, there was time between ISSC, which was mid-January, to mid-March. Okay.
Yeah, and our first HERO was in Orlando at the end of February.
Wow.
So yeah, we got in right under the wire there.
All right, so you got that going. What else?
Yeah. We last couple of years we've been developing our own color line. So we've got this incredible color line, which is actually hitting the shores here in mid-January, which we're
calling it MOB?
Super pumped about. I'm actually calling it Soho. It's by Mob, but it's SOHO, like Soho, like always been inspired by New York and Soho, how it's like this blend of urban, but it's modern and just casual, cool at the same time, upscale, but not in a way. So we just love the name Soho. It's a blend of, it's kind of us going not necessarily edgier, but kind of. We got snakes and roses on the design. It's like it's super badass.
Yeah. Wow. That's super cool. And as I'm looking at you and you're describing it, you've got a snake on your shirt.
I know. I just realized that I'm looking at the screen too.
Serpent or something like that.
Right.
So that's amazing. I love that idea. You're creating your own product line. Did you need to take a partner for that? I mean, that's an enormous undertaking. There's development time and cost.
Right.
There's inventory buildup. There's storage. There's like real practical things there that cost real money.
Right. Yeah. And I've been very successful over the last several years and was able to not have to take on a partner for that.
Amazing.
Which has been great. It's definitely, I definitely feel it in the piggy bank, but, I'm definitely ready for it to come out and start making some money. Let's put it that way, which I know it will. It's taken probably longer than most color lines have. And we've been told that by the people making it, for us in Italy. I could definitely sense they had some frustration, like just get it done already. But it took us so long because we wanted to make sure that every single shade was something that we were proud of. We weren't going to rush anything. We wanted to make sure that every color, every shade that we release is something we would reach for over anybody else. Where I look at other color lines, and as much as I might like some other color lines, I think a lot of color lines are known for specific things. Like, oh, this color line is known for their reds. This color line is known for their neutrals or their demis or their glazes or their vivids, whatever it is, whatever direction. I think a lot of color lines are kind of like start with something that they're famous for, and then just kind of like have like colors that I wouldn't necessarily think are like that fantastic. Whereas I want to make sure that like, hey, if I want something that's like a violet, that we have the best one. If we want something that's a red, that we have the best one. That I want something that is a neutral, like I want to always choose mine, not because I have to, because I own the brand, but because I would like it more than the other colors. So it took us a lot longer and a lot more tweaking and this just is not quite right. Can we add a little bit more of this background color or that background color? It cost a lot of trips to Italy, but definitely worth it. And we're here. And
God, I hate trips to Italy. That's just such a burden.
I know. It sounds really, really spoiled, but it is a small town in Italy. So even though it's Italy, it's you're kind of, it's one of those trips where you take and you like basically go straight to the lab. You don't get to go and look at the architecture and the catacombs and things like that. It's not necessarily always a fun trip. It's just like, let's just get this done and get this color out.
Mm-hmm. And then go to Tuscany.
And then go to Tuscany, and then go to Rome and Venice and everything.
And write it all off on the color line.
Right.
Okay, well, that sounds fantastic. And next is on the list of things to do when you start a color line is distribution. So what are you going to do how are you going to distribute?
We're still debating that. We've got a lot of opportunities that we are judging. And I know the model seems to be changing a bit too. We don't want to get stuck in a decision that maybe we're potentially stuck in a brick and mortar or where we can't do direct because we want to make sure the margins are right. So that, a lot of goes into that, and we have a very powerful brand, but there's just so many factors to consider. So we're gonna probably do what a lot of people do: have a bunch of meetings with a lot of different people and make the best decision that we can going forward. I know that we'll be successful regardless, but the level of success and the level of margin, that's where it really comes down to deciding which is going to be the easiest route to take and the one that comes with the least amount of stress. I'm done with stress. I don't want any more stress.
Oh, you're
I feel
done
like the
with
last
stress
4
already?
years has just been stressful.
Seems to me that that's a critical decision. Well, any time you start a business, and this is a separate business, of course, it's correlated to your mob business and everything you're doing, which is awesome, and it's going to help it tremendously. But of course, you want to make sure that it launches and starts in the right direction with the highest probability of success, and avoiding kind of the pitfalls that oftentimes happen with this kind of stuff, which oftentimes deals with things like, liquidity. It's like, oh shit, we signed up with this distributor, and they expect, 30,000 units,
Right.
in the next 2 months. And in order to get 30,000 in 2 months, I need to pay a premium to the whatever. And like, I don't have that. And let's say you put out the money for it, and if it doesn't sell as fast as you were hoping for, well, fuck, you're out of money. You know what I mean?
And it goes to the back of the room, the bottom shelf.
Exactly. And then you're out of money, and then
Right.
you're SOL. And then you can't take advantage of, okay, it's selling really well on the East Coast, but maybe not so well in the South or whatever. and you don't have the money to replenish the East Coast or something. You know, it's stuff like this that I've had many conversations about it. So hopefully that you make the right decisions and have all the success in the world. That's really exciting.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so those are two huge things. Is that I feel like this is Christmas morning. I keep asking for more presents, and you keep
Right.
giving me new things
Oh,
to
I got
unwrap.
lots of stuff. Yeah, I'm one of those people that always has a lot of balls in the air and throwing spaghetti at the wall when I'm trying new things, see what sticks, and
Yeah.
kind of jump towards that. Well, we also have something that's kind of been our bread and butter for a very long time, which is our online programs and offerings. And right now we have something called Masters Academy, which someone can get, a stylist that wants to excel in blonding or balayage, can jump on there and get some of the best training in the world. We've had, gosh, over, I don't know, 50,000 people take these online programs over the years. And it's right now you can get it for just one lifetime membership fee. And you get access to these certification courses, and they're not just like Netflix. It's not just like a bunch of videos that we've created over the years. I've tried the membership model, the subscription model. I've done that before. I've tried everything, but right now, I know that people they want a journey, and I've learned that through a lot of training, a lot of courses and research that I've done on my own too, and just experience. So we have these incredible courses. One, for instance, is called the Balayage Masters Program, which I actually developed in 2020 during COVID, where I was bored, but also I just wanted to create some kind of a master's program, something that is not advanced, but also takes you from absolute foundations all the way to advanced studies. And it's kind of like each week you get a new video based around like a 90-day schedule. So the goal being you're going to have better, faster, more confident balayage in 90 days. And on top of that too, you're going to be able to become master certified through us. And we do that through different accountability programs by sending in your work, but checks and balances to an extent. I mean, we're not going to tell somebody that they're like terrible what they do if they're doing the work, but like we just want to make sure that they're actually doing the work, because the people that are doing the work over and over again consistently have just their skills, their confidence shoots through the roof. And the amount of messages that I've received over the years of how their lives have changed, how they've gone from making 30 grand to $100,000 in less than 12 months is that, like, I've gotten a lot of messages like that where it's just, it really tells you you're doing something right. You know, what you're teaching is working. And anybody that is in this game for not just to make money, but to also have impact in a positive way, it really makes me feel good. It fills my bucket too, to know that I'm putting something out there that people are taking, running with, and improving their lives and the lives of everybody that they touch. So we have this right now. We've got we've got 3 certification programs on there, which is the Balayage Masters Program, the Blonde Masters Program, and the Extensions Masters Program. And you can get all this within the lifetime membership on Masters Academy, which is it's had different names over the years, but recently we rebranded it Masters Academy in the last year. Before that, it was Balayage Online, which is more of a kind of like a Netflix library that people would come on and for a little bit hang on, get some new videos each month. But the online game, the online programs that we have, I started those in 2017, and it's just amazing that the impact that they've had worldwide and on people's lives, and including my own. It's really helped me go from like here to like exponentially growth as far as income as well.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so anything else? I'm almost going to stop asking because you just have an answer every time I say what else?
What else? We're launching a new coaching program, which is also fantastic. You know, we have it's Ryan's Inner Circle, which it's an invite-only coaching program that I have one-on-ones for that, as well as it's small group mastermind type coaching, which is already kicking butt, and people are having incredible success with that. I'm a certified high performance coach, and I actually did that through Brendan Burchard in the last couple of years, which is really cool to actually have not just, quote unquote, be a coach or call myself a coach, but to actually have gone through something and be a certified coach, having gone through the training for that, which has been fun.
So I'm glad you said that, because I've detected that I was going to say shift, but it's not really a shift. It's really just an additional arrow in your quiver that you've been flexing, you've been firing off those arrows, which I think are awesome. I'm particularly referring to some of the content that you put out that seems to be more geared towards psychology, successful mindset sort of things, and I love that, and I think you're really good at it too. So I kind of want to take us right there in this conversation. Why don't we just head in that direction?
Yeah, sure.
I only wrote down one question for this interview. Typically, I write down, I've got maybe 30 questions, and then depending on how the conversation is going, I can kind of pick and choose or go in a totally different direction. But you and I have known each other, and we've had these conversations before. But so the only question I wrote down was, let's talk about the top 3 things somebody could do right now to be happier and more successful behind the chair.
Great question. To be happier, I would say the first thing to install are some boundaries. Most of stylists don't have any boundaries. We're people pleasers by nature, and what we think we need to do is cater to every request, every whim that a client throws at us, whether it's answering a text at 9 p.m. at night, or squeezing them in, or fixing something, or discounting, and then that comes without having boundaries. We end up emotionally discounting, and then we end up not being able to make what we should. Our confidence drops, and the whole experience drops, and we end up living paycheck to paycheck. So I think the first thing we really need to decide is, if we don't really know what our boundaries are, let's decide what we don't want in life, what we don't want to stand for. And what we don't want is, we don't want the stress. We don't want to answer the phone after business hours. We don't want to work on the weekends. So it's easier to really kind of rattle off what we don't want. We don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. We don't want to undercharge for our things. And then we circle maybe kind of like the top 3. It's hard to change everything all at once, but we start to create rules for ourselves, like boundary rules. Like, all right, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore after business hours. If my clients call, they're going to have to... Or text.
Right?
Yeah, text.
Any
is the
sort
worst.
of... Yeah.
Yeah, because once we do, what happens? We open the floodgates. We let the client know that they can reach us at 10 p.m.
We're training our client. We're training our client to do exactly what we don't want them to do.
Right. And then when they text us a week later or 2 weeks later at 10 p.m. and we don't answer, the client is going to take it personally, like we're ignoring them because, hey, it worked last time. They got back to me. We need to be able to set some kind of boundary, set some kind of message that's just even be automated. It says, hey, I appreciate you reaching out, or just don't answer the text, but you have to like dig your feet in the ground and just say, if you don't, you got to stand for this. If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. So by doing this, we're going to start to strengthen our boundaries and our willpower, and the confidence is going to come for that. We need to add that professionalism back into what we do. Still have fun with what we do, but strengthen our boundaries. So I'd say that's I probably said a lot of things there, but I think that's number one is like we need to get very clear on our boundaries.
Okay, before we move to the second one, I want to just dig one level deeper on boundaries. In your ongoing coaching and your communications with various hairdressers who have been having trouble creating and keeping those boundaries, for those for whom it's most difficult, how do you break through to get them to actually create them and to keep them?
To create and keep boundaries.
Yeah. What is it for those who are worst at it?
Yeah.
What is causing them to be so bad at it, and how do you break through so that they actually create them and keep them?
I'd say probably the hardest way to separate is we're so accessible these days. Even us as CEOs, we're very accessible. You can send a DM, and you could have an assistant answer or something, but you can go almost directly to the person. Whether or not they choose to answer is a different story. But when it comes to texting, one of the biggest tricks for me, one of the biggest life-changing decisions I made when I was on my own taking clients in the salon to set boundaries was I had to distance my clients from my cell phone. Like they could not have access to my cell phone number because that opens the gates for calling and answering. So I ended up getting at first, before I could afford to get a second phone, which I did. The first thing I did was I just got a Google Voice number, which is basically I think they still do it. It's a free number that you can make, and it'll go to your phone, but you have a separate app. It'll ring to your phone so that you know things are happening, but you can set hours on it, like, oh, don't ring to this, or after 5 o'clock, after 6 o'clock, it'll go to straight to voicemail, and that voicemail will say, like, thank you for calling, Ryan's Salon. I'm away. I'll be back in the morning. Please leave a message here if it's about your appointment, or if it's urgent. Then maybe you can text or something. If you're not going to be able to make it, you could have something for that. But most of the time, it's not very urgent. It's normally like, hey, can you fit me in tomorrow morning, or something like that, which you probably couldn't anyways. So distancing yourself from the conversation that way. So you have your business line and your personal line. I mean, before cell phones, it was a lot easier because everything was a landline, and you could only answer your business phone at work because the number rang in your office. And if you weren't in your office, it would just go straight to a voicemail.
Right,
So
and that was education for the younger listeners. There used to be
a landline.
There used to be these phones that were tethered to the wall. It was really weird. And once you walked out of the room and it rang, well, you just didn't answer it.
I still remember the first car phones, the ones that were tethered to the car, where for the parents, for the moms, it was always the moms that had the car phones, at least I was so excited to have a car phone in the car. You could only answer the phone while I was in the car.
Right. Which is dangerous, by the way. And of course, it costs like $3 a minute.
Right.
I remember those days. All right. So boundaries is number one. What's number two?
Boundaries is number one. Oh, man. I would say another thing that they could do is get real specific on what they're doing. I will always tell somebody to start focusing on a niche specialty, become a niche authority in what you do. Too many stylists do too many things, and they're trying to be everything to everybody. And it's impossible to be good at everything. It's better to be excellent at one thing, and that's how you're going to really separate yourself from a crowded industry. So if balayage is your thing, start to go all in on balayage. Learn everything you can. Become obsessed with it. If blonding is your thing, same thing. If cutting bobs is your thing, if you're a hair cutter and you want to do that, or fades and you're a barber and that's your thing, get so good at one aspect of what you do and direct all of your marketing, all of your social media to that, so that you're not trying to just get anybody in your chair that's going to pay you money and then you walk into a question mark. I'm going to do something different all day long, which maybe might seem like, oh, I can be creative all day long, but really, how much creativity can we take at one time? We could be creative, like really creative, maybe for one client a day, and then you're just like, give me something that's like robotic, so I don't have to think about it, so I'm not exhausted when I go home. I want to go home with energy instead of going home and just like, give me some wine. I need to forget this day, or during the day when we're trying to be creative, we're living off these 40-ounce sodas and milkshakes from Starbucks. That's not a healthy way to go about it. So instead of if we start to focus on a specialty skill and get so good at it, it becomes robotic. And then being robotic, we'll start to have a strategy, and we'll get better at it and more efficient. We'll speed up the timing and efficiency of our appointments. And because we're going to be so good at it and known as an expert at it, we're going to be able to charge more, to be sought after more, to have a wait list. And that wait list will even allow us to raise our prices higher.
Mm-hmm. And this niching down into a focus begets more niching down into a focus, right? Like if you focus, let's just take balayage, then your balayage clients, other people are going to hit them up and be like, oh my God, I love your hair. And then you're going to get more referrals from that, right? So it helps. However, there is a transitional period of time, isn't there, from the hairdresser who does men, does kids, does all sorts of different chemical services on the ladies and all this stuff. there's a transitional period from doing that into niching down. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that transitional period. They don't want to say no to the husband of their one client.
Sure.
They don't want to say it because that's money in the bank.
Right.
So how do you suggest they start thinking about that transition?
That's a great question. I would say, since we're always trying to get new clients in, unless you're so busy and booked out that like you don't need any more clients, I think we should always be looking for new clients. And I think you start on new client marketing, so that new clients coming in, as long as you're able to pay your bills with your existing clients, as you're trying to niche down and grow, like you said, you don't want to rattle your income too much. But you also want to make a change like that. It does take some time. Let's say I decided to transition from a general hairstylist that does a little bit of everything to a balayage specialist. Let's start marketing toward new clients with nothing but balayage. It's not going to affect our current clients, but as there is an attrition period of clients coming and going, over a period of time, some of your current clients will eventually, die or move, or just kind of get sick of you and look for the next shiny object. You'll be able to pull in even more new clients, but the new clients that you're pulling in will be paying a higher price because you're a specialist now. In the way you're marketing, you're a specialist, and you're hopefully very good at it because you're a specialist. It'll also give you extra time to get really good at your new specialty, because if you're just like pretty good at balayage and you're starting to call yourself a specialist, you need to make sure that you can support that. So that way it'll give you more time to become obsessed with it, do more training, get really good at that. And then as you're pulling in new clients, which are only balayage clients, or at least 90% balayage clients, I think that's how you start to make that big transition. And then a year down the line, 2 years down the line, if you could have maybe anywhere from 60 to 80% of your clients be your bread and butter balayage services, your 20%, 30% or maybe existing clients that have just love you and you love them, and they're doing everything from kids cuts to whatever else that you don't normally specialize in, that's fine. Or that's the creative ones, the color corrections. But as long as we have kind of like almost like the 80-20 rule, 80% of what we do is going to get us 20% of the ease of what we do, the specialty. I think that's where we need to focus.
Okay. So I love this, and I have only one more question about it, because I think our listeners, as they're driving to the salon in the car right now, they're thinking, I know I need to niche down. I'm doing way too many things. It's ridiculous. I've got all these different products in my studio, and I don't use any one particular category a lot because I do so many different things. But what do I niche down to? Do I niche down? I've got 40% guys and they love me. And then I've got, 60% kind of ladies cuts and color. And should I niche down to guys cuts, or should I niche down to, ladies color? And should they be more guided by what they're passionate about? Or should they be more guided by maybe where their talents seem to be more unique? Let's say if they're happen to be really good at dudes cuts, but maybe they're not necessarily passionate about dudes cuts, but they feel a little bit like, gosh, maybe I should concentrate on dudes cuts because I think I can make more money doing that.
It's another good question. I think you start there. If you're going to be spending 80% of your time, hypothetically, doing this one thing, you want to make sure you love it. Like you want to make sure that it's a skill, it's a look, something that you love, even if you might not be excellent at it yet, but something that you really enjoy doing. So I think the first thing you need to decide is, if I could only do one service in the salon, what would it be? And then, okay, let's write that down, right? Maybe if it's balayage, okay, balayage. The next thing you would want to do, okay, is the niche specific enough? And by making it more specific, it narrows our focus, which gives us more clarity on what we need to improve. If it's too broad of a category, then it's going to be hard to master it. We're going to be too spread thin, and we're going to get stressed out and burnt out. So even balayage, to be honest, is a pretty broad category. I mean, you can be a balayage specialist, but if you take it further, if I was going to say myself, I call myself like a blonding specialist, and balayage is the way. I'm not good at dimensional. I'm not good at adding in making brunettes. That's not my thing. But balayage could be, you could be a bronze specialist. You could be a blonde specialist. You could be an open air painting specialist, because there's just so many different ways to do it. So decide even further, if you love balayage, like, okay, well, what kind of balayage? Do you like just lightening and toning? Like, that's me. It's simple, it's effective, it's dramatic. That's what I love. Or do you like more of a sombre, subtle balayage kind of effects? What is it about your balayages that you love? Because you want to make sure that when you go to your marketing, to your Instagram page, that it reflects that. So for me, you're going to see a lot of blondes, back in the day, a lot of blondes, a lot of high contrast blondes. Somebody else, a lot of brunettes. The whole page should be brunettes. If it's curly hair, it should be all curly haired looks. The next thing you want to decide on after you find a niche that you love and make sure it's specific enough, you got to assess the viability of it, the marketability of it. Is it a service that's going to pay the bills? Is it something you can charge a lot of money for it? And is it in demand? And what is also, So make sure it's something that people are going to want. If it's too nichey and people aren't after it, and it's not something that's going to cost a lot of money for people to get done, then it's probably not going to pay your bills or be a career changer. And then the next thing you want to do is check, probably the fourth thing you want to do is check the competition. How much of your competition is doing this? Is it neck and neck? Is everybody in your area doing this? Or is it few and far between? Because if you have something that you love to do, there's a high demand for it, and it's niche specific, and nobody's doing it, you can own your market.
Or not many people are doing it. There might
Or
be
not
some
many people are doing it. Yeah. And then you can look at your competition and say, well, if they're doing it, how are they doing it? And then how can I differentiate myself? How can I use signature techniques to do the same thing but stand out in a different way?
And if you're in San Diego, let's just take San Diego.
Yeah.
But there's somebody in Oceanside, which is about an hour or so north, maybe 45 minutes north or so
From downtown, yeah.
From downtown. That's maybe not your specific area. So maybe you could even, watch some things that she's doing. She's been very successful in that kind of North County, San Diego, South Orange County sort of area. And then maybe you can piggyback, take some examples from what she's doing for your specific area, maybe, huh?
Absolutely. I would say take as many ideas from other people that are doing something that works and just make it your own. There's absolutely zero reason to recreate the wheel, because somebody's probably already done what any of us have ever conjured up in our own heads. We got the idea from somewhere. Most of us didn't just pull a rabbit out of, midair, out of a hat. We've all probably seen it somewhere, and it's been logged into our brain, and we think, oh, I have this great idea and I did it. And even though we think it's our own idea, it's probably a blend of something that we learned from somebody else.
Right. Okay. So number 1 is boundaries. Number 2 is niching down and focusing. What's number 3?
Number 3 is self-care, because a lot of us are self-care is self-love. Self-care means we need to take care of ourselves. We give so much of ourselves to our clients that we have nothing left when we go home. And that's not a good thing. People think that's what we need to do as service providers. But the thing is, if we show up to work and we're already exhausted from everything that we give to everybody else, and we show up as, we're only 30%, of what we feel. I feel like 30% today. Then even if we're giving 100% to our clients, we're still only giving 100% of 30%. So what we need to be doing is we need to make sure that we're filling up our own glass so that we have enough to pour into our clients and still have some left over for us. We can't be trying to be this righteous person like, oh, I give everything to my clients and I'm their therapist, I'm this and that. We have to protect ourselves, not just mentally and emotionally, but physically. Our job is extremely demanding. And even though we're not construction workers lifting concrete bricks, we're cowered in these awkward positions all day long, holding blow dryers for hours at a time, minutes at a time that turns into hours. And I've had carpal tunnel. I've been impacted. I've had shoulder injuries from fucking doing hair. It's funny. But then by actually exercising, by taking care of ourselves, by eating better, by drinking less, doing these types of self-care routines, we can show up and not need this giant Trenta coffee mochaccino to get us through the day. You know, we actually
Right.
will make time for ourselves to eat something nutritious and not wear ourselves thin.
Yeah, I love it. And having those boundaries of the number one helps with that, doesn't it? And I
Right.
think even number two helps with it too, because it allows you to kind of focus in which there's a psychological benefit to that without being so spread from a creative standpoint, like you so well described. All right. Well, I love that. Those are three great things. If I hand you the wand of power
Yeah.
in the professional beauty industry, and you can wave it and change anything you want about the industry right now, what would you change?
Man, I think one thing that I don't know how this would even happen, but so many hairdressers just go into the industry after beauty school with zero knowledge on how to grow their business, how to become successful. They basically learn enough skills to pass the exam, and then after that, it's just like, hey, here you go, good luck, throwing you to real life. And most stylists, I mean, I still think it's such a terrible statistic that the average stylist still makes, I don't know, between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. You just can't survive on that. It's impossible. You couldn't survive on that 20 years ago. You're barely eking by, and now, I mean, for I guess what is it for a family of four to live successfully, you need to make at least $250,000, and that's still just kind of like getting by. So we need to somehow teach that confidence early on, and maybe incorporate that into beauty school. I know that I don't know if you know Elizabeth Fay, but she's got something that she has right now called the Vitality Project, which she's introducing these types of principles into beauty schools so that they can empower students at a very early age, at a very impressionable age, so that when they actually go into the real world, that they can be more confident with themselves, be more clear on their goals, even if they're not really sure what they might want to focus on, but just kind of knowing what they're worth and knowing what maybe the next right moves statistically are, so that they're not struggling and living paycheck to paycheck and having a hard life, and then potentially even just quitting the business because they realize they can't make it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Elizabeth's been on the show. She's a friend of the show. I like saying that. She's a friend of the show. No, that's fantastic. She's doing great stuff like that. I love it. All right. Well, any new hair horror stories? I probably asked you let's see, when did yeah, for sure. I was doing hair horror stories 4 years ago. It was Jacob Kahn's idea, by the way, or initially maybe not quasi is not the right word. Circa 2018, I think.
Yeah.
Jacob was like, you know what you should ask? You should ask for hair horror stories. And he's like, I always want to do a podcast where that's all we talk about. And so I was like, all right, well, give me one. And then I asked pretty much every guest since then. So we probably have 350 hair horror stories. And I may or may not have asked you last time, but regardless of whether I asked you, do you have any on the top of your head? And maybe they could be like a hair education or a show horror story or a something.
Well, the one that always pops into my head is something I'll never forget. I was in my salon suite, and this was probably right around 2016, 17-ish. I have this regular guy. He comes in every 4 weeks. Really nice guy. I was cutting his hair. That likes it nice and close, scissor close on the sides, and traditionally short on the top. But I was just kind of just doing my thing, and we're chatting, and I'm just cutting his hair, and I'm right near his ear, and I'm just got the blades going really fast, and I don't know, I could feel the ear get stuck in my blade. And instantly, my thumb just stopped moving. It also probably stopped moving because he screamed louder than I've probably ever heard a man scream in my life.
He scared you.
He screamed that the blood just instantly left my face. I turned white, and then the blood from his ear started shooting across the room.
It's not funny.
He's like,
I'm not laughing because it's funny.
No, I know. He instantly puts his hand up to his ear, and I jump back. I had an assistant there at the same time. She went pale white as well. I'm like, just gushing blood on his ear, and I look over at his ear. The top of his ear, where I have a little point here, was kind of like dangling. Like I had
So
literally
you didn't get it clear off.
I had literally severed 3/4 of the top of this guy's ear off, and it was just hanging there.
Wow.
I just didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh God, let's grab towels, grab this, and we're putting it on. Hey, hold this here. Okay. I like cancel all my appointments. I'm gonna take you to the hospital. Let's go. Took him to this walk-in clinic, and everything turned out okay. He ended up obviously having a scar, and it got sewn back on. and from that point on, it's funny because I followed up with tears and heartfelt response, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. He's been coming to me for years, and I just in that moment I don't know what popped into my head or how I lost focus, but think about how many times we're actually using our shears, especially with a scissor over comb. That's a lot of chances to nick some skin.
Sure.
And especially around the ears. I definitely fold those ears down now for sure, but I was just going for it, and it happened. And obviously I said, the haircut's going to be on me. And I just said, hey, if you, I'd love to have you back, and I just know that you'll have haircuts with me as long as you want, and you won't have to pay for them. Right. Whatever I could, I'm just in my back of my head, just please don't sue me. I can't afford it. Right. And funny enough, he did start coming back to me.
Good.
Yeah. So
and he didn't sue you?
He did not sue me. No, I paid.
Did you
for
have
all the
professional liability insurance?
I did. I didn't have to use it, thankfully.
Yeah.
Because it was only a $200 walk-in bill to stitch it up, which was nice.
Right. Good.
Yeah. But it's funny because I actually wrote this little handbook years ago in 2016. I wrote this thing called Sweet Success, which was about how I became successful in a salon suite. And I'm sure we probably talked about that at some point. And I talk about that particular incident in the book about I didn't have to exercise it, but make sure you guys insure yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think like a business. You're a business now. You got to make sure you are protected.
Yeah. At Salon Republic, we offer professional liability to all of our hairstylists. Insurance is super important. I've had multiple episodes on insurance, and it's always kind of one of these things where I kind of grimace and I think, am I really going to drop an episode about insurance? Because nobody wants to fucking hear about insurance, right? We get into the hair industry so we don't have to worry about insurance, kind of. It's because it's such a nerdy thing. But I still put out episodes about insurance. We offer professional liability insurance at Salon Republic. It's super important. Anyway, glad you didn't have to use it. Yeah. And I think we did talk about your Sweet Success book in the second episode, if I remember correctly, because of course that's so apropos to our audience and everything we do. Well, this has been awesome. Great to see you look healthy.
Thanks, man.
It sounds like you have more than enough to chew on going forward. And super good luck with the product line and everything you're doing.
Thank you. Next stop is you're going to be on my podcast. So let's arrange that. That'd be amazing. Be an honor.
I commit. I promise.
You heard it live.
That's right. All right, brother. Good to see you.
All right, you too, man. Take care.